Hello and welcome to Middlebury 5-0. I am your host, Officer Chris Mason, and in the studio with me today is Heather Seeley. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you, Chris.
Or I should say welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
we've
you.
had shows in the past.
Yes, thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. So the Select Board election is coming up.
It is?
That's going to be on March 1st, is it this year?
Yes, Tuesday, March 1st.
And
yes.
you are a candidate for the Middlebury Selectboard.
I am. I am running for one of three three-year term seats this year. This is the 1 year where there are 3 seats up for election this year. There are 2 incumbents running, and then there are also 3 other people vying for the 3rd seat or any of the seats, and I'm one of those.
Okay.
So I'm very excited.
Yeah. We had a high-profile member step down, though.
Yes, we did. Yes, big kudos to Chairman and incumbent Dean George, who's I think served close to 20 years on the board.
Yeah, I know it's been a long time.
Yeah, and big thank you to him for all of his time and effort. But yes, he's decided to step down, so that's what's making the open seat this year.
Sure. So there's some big boots to fill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know that I could commit to that long of a term.
20 years.
I'm sure when he started, though, he wasn't thinking 20 years also. But
well, it's hard to imagine what your life is going to look like in 20 years' time. Sometimes I have trouble imagining what it's going to look like in a year or 2 even. So 20 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm grateful that there's an opportunity for me, but also very thankful for all of his service to the town.
Right.
So,
tremendous service, and and the position itself, being on the select board, it's a service position. It's a public service position.
Yes, absolutely, and
it's a big commitment.
It is.
Right.
I don't think that. I don't think everyone realizes the amount of time and preparation that the select board members are putting into the meetings every twice a month.
Yeah.
There's really a lot of background information, a lot of issues to know about and make decisions on. So I think it's a big time commitment.
Yeah.
But I'm ready.
And a heavy burden too.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like the level of scrutiny has increased over recent years, and that there are more people paying attention to what the select board is doing.
I think you're probably right. I think that's true, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
I think it's a good thing that people are paying attention and know what's going on and want to be involved. But yes, that does mean you're probably approached more or scrutinized more.
Right.
But yeah. I'm okay with it. I'm good. So if you're going to be serving the public, you've got to be willing to make that commitment too, to answer questions or
for sure
discuss people's concerns with them. So
yeah,
I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. Well, I think there are places where the people who serve in local government would be somewhat removed. They would not want to be kind of embroiled in the day-to-day stuff, and I don't think that this is one of those places. I think we have a different style of government. I think even at the higher level, but especially at the local level, that there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of personal contact.
Yeah, and I think this is a great community for that type of government, and we're really fortunate to have situations where people feel comfortable coming forward and participating, and and it certainly makes for a better community the more people I think that we have involved, and one person can't solve all the problems. It really takes lots and the ideas of lots, and so I think the more people we can have on committees and look, there's so many things that I think are important to Middlebury right now. Really having input and participation from people who aren't on the select board or just residents really help enrich the results and the conversations and I think that ultimately determines better outcomes because we have that participation. So
Right. Yeah.
I hope it continues.
Yeah.
And increases even.
So, I mean, I think the idea of being on the select board is that you bring a certain expertise to the board, a certain wisdom, vision, whatever it might be. But for the most part, you're listening to what the people are saying.
Yes.
So you're serving as a conduit for their desires, what they want to see their town become, essentially.
Yes, I hope so.
Right. I guess that's what government is supposed to be like on every level, like in theory.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and in the ideal world, right?
Indeed.
Yes. And hopefully we're as close as we can be here. So.
Right. So you mentioned that there are lots of issues, there are lots of things kind of on the table right now. What are some of those things? Like what stand out for you as the big issues of the moment?
Well, I think obvious and foremost probably in a lot of people's mind is the railroad bridges.
Absolutely.
The cost, the duration of the construction.
There's a lot of apprehension regarding
and
how that's going to impact the town.
The downtown, how it's going to impact our businesses and our, our focal point down there. So I think that's probably number one.
Right.
I think it may be delayed a little bit given the desire to put a temporary parking garage on the so-called EDI property, or the Economic Development Initiative property, which is the property behind the library here.
Okay.
But developing that property in the future and working with NextBridge and the community, hopefully having a good process for what the community would like to see and balancing that with what's economically viable for the businesses involved.
Sure. It's a lot of things to juggle. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very fine line when you're talking about, making something economically feasible, making it so that someone can open the doors every day and turn the lights on every day.
Sure.
And then also make it something the community wants and is proud of, and so that'll be something big coming up.
Absolutely.
I would imagine in the next 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And I think I've spent about 1.5 years on the Public Works Committee, which is something that I hadn't been doing previously when I ran for Select Board. And so that's kind of really opened my eyes to the status of our infrastructure and town assets, buildings, and what we need basically. And for instance, we have the old wastewater treatment plant, which is right next to the police department.
Yes, I'm very much aware of the old wastewater treatment plants there every day when I show up for work.
Yeah, and it's an area where it's sort of gotten forgotten,
Right, sure. By most of the community, I would imagine there are very few people who know those buildings or have been inside those buildings.
And know what condition those buildings are,
Absolutely.
and that there was supposed to be a plan for decommissioning. And we've been looking at that, but one thing we keep kind of running into is the storage deficiencies. Storage seems to be a big issue for the town right now, which I don't know that a lot of people are aware of. We have, we're losing storage in the municipal building. Public Works is already short, and the police department is storing vehicles in that part of that old building.
They are, yeah. That's where our command center vehicle is, our big truck.
And we're almost kind of hurting ourselves a little bit by not taking care of the things that we have as well as we could be. So I'd like to see us make a better plan for how we're going to go forward, how we're going to take care of our assets.
Right.
Because I don't want to, what I feel like's been happening the last few years is we just deal with things as it becomes an emergency, and we have to deal with it. And I would like a plan for how we might try to deal with some of these things in
Yeah.
an orderly fashion, in a planned.
Something a little more preemptive than reactive.
Yes, exactly.
So you can really think it through and come up with something that is ideal.
So that's just an example. I've been pushing on the Public Works Committee for generating a list of things that we would like to do, things, for facilities, maintenance, management, so that when things come up that are reactive, we can say, well, where does this fall in the list, and what is a higher priority, and how do we manage this for the best benefit for the taxpayers. So that's something that's feels pretty important and something we should be looking at.
Yeah. I've always felt like that wastewater area, those buildings, could produce a really excellent revenue stream if that area was rented out as a horror movie set. So I don't know if have you walked around down into the basement area in particular? It's the spookiest place I've ever been to in my life.
Yes.
There's old rusting machinery, and water is dripping, and there are little stalactites up in the ceiling.
So I think I went to the bottom of the stairs.
Right. And it's terrifying.
And that's as far as I got, because I wasn't sure how safe it was to go much further. But we we started one of our meetings, Public Works Committee meetings, there, so that everybody could see. And it was good for me, because even as a resident, I wasn't aware of what it was like there.
Yeah, there have been snake sightings in there too.
In the building?
In the building.
In the basement?
Oh
there?
yeah. Well, I think up in the top area actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and we have a sergeant who is terrified of snakes, so he won't go in there anymore.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. For me, it's spiders. So as long as there's no spiders, I'm good. So.
I could guarantee that.
So the other big thing for me that's coming up is the unification of the schools.
Sure, huge issue, absolutely.
The vote is at town meeting day, obviously, and we're voting on whether or not to unify, and then also voting on a new board, and then it'll be a big, if it does go forward, it will be a big transition over the next year, converting to what we have now, to what we have going forward, a unified system going forward.
Yes. I know a lot of people who serve on the school board, and there's a lot of kind of confusion, and nobody knows quite where they stand right now. We're in that kind of a limbo state. And
yeah, I think that it's been put to me a couple times that it's a leap of faith.
Right.
We are certainly entering into this, and I don't see how we can't do it given the incentives that the state is providing, but it's really a leap of faith that we'll figure it out as we get there, which is a little hard, I think, for people, because I like to know exactly how things are gonna happen. So I think it will be important for the select board to keep up with what's happening there, and making sure that as we move forward, the best interests of Middlebury are preserved, because we're now talking about a community school essentially, and inequality for all students, and so I think that will also be important, keeping up with the unification and how it's going. And
absolutely. Well, schools are such a central component of the community. I mean, I think of all communities, but certainly in Middlebury, the school is right there in the center of it, and also, I mean, a huge aspect of the budget as well. So financially, an enormous piece of the equation, piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's a little bit uncertain for me is when we have one budget for all the schools, will we still know how each individual school is spending money and how they're doing, per pupil spending, and where can we make it most effective? Because I think Middlebury is in a unique position that that our taxes over time are likely to go up. only because we've merged with the other schools and not because we're actually spending more money at our school.
Right.
So how do we keep up with what the other schools are spending, and is it reasonable, and but still maintaining that community school feeling? Because I don't think anybody wants to close school, but how do close schools? But how do we manage declining enrollment, increasing costs, without closing schools? So there will be a lot of work, a lot of creative thinking, and I think it will be important for members of the select board to keep on top of that and be good liaisons with the school board. So.
Well, certainly something that generates a tremendous amount of passion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
People feel very, very strongly about their schools and about education. I think, rightly so. I think it's a good thing that people are so engaged, and there is so much kind of strong feeling about that. And I think people are very proud of Vermont schools. I think that's one of the great assets that we have in Vermont, and in Middlebury in particular.
Yes, absolutely.
It's one of the things that draws people to the state. It's one of the things that makes us such a great kind of quality of life place.
And it really, like you said, it's even in the smaller towns, the school is the center of the community, and maintaining that, but maintaining costs or controlling costs. How do we do that? How do we manage that going forward? So it will be an interesting time.
And I know you have a vested interest, because
I do. I do.
Got a couple of children. Is it
Yes.
it's Rebecca and Ben?
Yes.
Right? And Rebecca's in kindergarten now,
Yes,
right?
she's in kindergarten this year. So this is her first year at Mary Hogan. And then Ben's in 4th grade now. So so we're for Becca, just starting out in the school system.
That's right. So he's got a long road ahead.
Yes. Yes. But fortunately, she loves it. She's excited every day to go to school. So
that's fabulous.
Makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
The other one, on the other hand,
he could take it or leave it. Huh?
He gets excited about school vacation.
Right. I think that's natural to some extent.
But he does well in school too. But yes, it's important to me. Yes, obviously, because I do have kids still in the system, and so those are the 4 big things that I can think about right now. If I could just say a little bit, I think it's hard for only 7 select board members to keep up and keep track of all the different topics and issues. So having a good, diverse select board, people with lots of different backgrounds and experiences, can help, because there are so many different things. And I don't think that each member can be expected to know everything about all of it. But if we have people who are experts in their areas, who are experts on those issues, and you can't answer a question for the community, you know who to send it to, rather than all of us, or I should say all of them, trying to know everything. Being expert on a couple of things and aware of the other things might ultimately give us better results. Well,
it seems like some greater diversity, greater breadth on the select board would benefit the town in terms of an array of expertise, but it would also benefit the town in the sense that if you have diversity, it's a fair bet that those people are going to represent different segments of the Middlebury community, different segments of society. So rather than it just being a more narrow portion of the community that's represented, it's a much broader, wider cross-section.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly the case. And I hope, if I were elected, that my being there increases some of that diversity. Being a woman, being maybe a little on the younger side than traditional select board members.
I think they, select board members tend to be a little older. I think it's challenging for people who are younger, who have children, who are embroiled in careers to commit to being on the select board. I think it's challenging anyway, but certainly when you have that array of commitments, it makes it even more so. So I think
you're right. I think my advantage in that situation is that we run our own businesses. So I don't have a traditional you know, 9 to 5 job.
Right.
So it allows me to be a little more flexible with my time. Not that there's ever enough of it, but
That's right. Yep. Yep.
but I can, you know, I can work at 9 o'clock at night because that's when it works for me for the day, or attend meetings or whatever. And I did, I've also, since about July, I believe, been an alternate on the DRB, the Development Review Board. So between the Development Review Board and the Public Works Committee, you know, I've been attending, you know, quite a few meetings over the last, I would say, 7 or 8 months. So that's helped me get a better handle on the time involved. I think the Select Board is probably a little bit bigger commitment than the DRB or Public Works.
Sure.
Because there's more issues, more time. But I think it's really helped me see what I'm capable of and what I can fit in my schedule.
Yep.
So I think I'm ready for the commitment.
Excellent. So you mentioned that you run a business.
Yes.
What business is that? What is the business?
The main business is Seeley Earth Moving. So we're an excavating company.
Do you drive the diggers? Are you the
I can drive the diggers.
Excellent.
But I will tell you, I'm not the expert at driving the diggers. My husband is definitely, he's been doing it for a long time. And when he runs an excavator, it's like he's running an extension of his arm. You know, it's just amazing.
There's artistry to it.
Yes.
The grace.
When I run it, I need to be away from everything, or it doesn't need to be, you know, a very beautiful finished product, and then I can run it just fine.
Okay. Broad strokes.
Yes, yes. I can dig a hole in the ground as long as you don't need it to be exactly a certain depth, or you know.
Well, that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way better than I could do with it.
I did get my CDL recently, my commercial driver's license.
Congratulations.
Recently. Well, I guess it's been about a year, a little more now. So I can drive the tandem dump trucks down the road and stuff.
Oh, right.
And I also do, you know, the bookkeeping and the business management end of things. Right. And that's our main business.
Well, certainly that, I mean, business management, bookkeeping, I mean, those skills seem like they would be very much applicable to what you would be doing on the Select Board if you were elected.
Absolutely. For budgeting, yes.
It's a big part of it.
Managing projects and prioritizing, absolutely. I do a lot of customer service too, which I think is a big part of being on the Select Board.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. And then we have a maple sugaring business, and I do a little photography on the side, and that's pretty much it, but that's probably enough.
Maple sugaring. It doesn't get much more Vermonty than that.
Yeah,
does it?
no.
That's iconic.
No.
Yeah.
And my husband is an 8th generation. My kids are 9th generation Vermonters. Right. So, and his family's been doing it for a long time. Yeah.
So they probably remember when they used to have the buckets and they would.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Buckets and horses and
the wood stove.
Yeah, we still use wood.
Still use the wood?
We still use wood. We don't use the horses. We do use some buckets still, but they're very labor intensive. And,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
When you use gravity to collect the sap with tubing, well, it's not quite so hard on the back.
Sure. Yep.
But you know, I do miss the days where we had the horses and all the people, and but it's tough. People are busy, and so it's a little harder these years.
Sometimes you got to sacrifice a little romance to efficiency.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your husband is, you said it was like 8th generation?
Yes.
And where are you from originally? What's your background?
I was born in Key West, Florida. Right. And lived down there until I was about 10. And my mom was originally from the Albany, New York area. So my dad was a military child, so he was kind of from all over. Yep. And that's how he ended up in Florida, was the Navy. Yep. And then she wanted to move back up this way, and so we moved back to Vermont and into Middlebury, I think, so when I was about 10. And I went to 5th grade at Mary Hogan, and then we moved out to Cornwall, where my parents still are in Cornwall. and I attended Cornwall for a year, and then came and attended the middle school and the high school, and graduated from Middlebury.
Right. So mostly educated in the Middlebury
Yes.
education system,
Yes.
school system.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I went off to college. I graduated from Colby Sawyer College in New London, New Hampshire, and while I was in college and working around the area in the summer, I met my husband, and then of course I moved back here because he had his life and job and stuff here,
Right.
and so I've been living in Middlebury since college, since '95. So I've been here a while, and
Yeah. Never find yourself pining for the Keys, missing that the Keys life and
I do miss
the flip-flops
ocean.
and the
I do miss the ocean.
Jimmy Buffett music.
Yeah. I do miss the ocean. I definitely miss the water.
I miss the oceans. I grew up in an ocean town. and
Yeah.
It's hard to leave the coast behind when you get used to it. Yeah.
But it's so different. It's so it's so touristy down
Sure.
there.
Yeah.
And back when we moved, there was a lot of immigration, and we were actually a minority in the public school system. There was a lot of Spanish-speaking immigrants, so it was really different. And I think my parents just wanted a different upbringing for my sister and I. They wanted more of what they had growing up, so that's part of the reason they moved. And I don't know, it was the best place to raise kids. It's a great place maybe to go visit and live, but I don't know that it's the best place to raise kids.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
the opportunities there's not as many opportunities, I think, as there are up here. And it depends, if you want to fish and live by the ocean, well, okay. But I do miss the ocean. But I have to say, I do love the change of seasons. I don't miss, I'm not crazy about the heat and humidity, I like the season changes.
I lived in Virginia for a number of years, and during the summer it was pretty oppressive, the heat and humidity. Yep.
People talk about coming up here and how you can't go outside in the winter, it's too cold. Well, for me, living down there, you can't go outside in the summer because it's too hot. You have to stay in the air conditioning.
Yep.
So I think it's a trade-off. At least, I don't know, I always like to say, this is probably terrible, but you can only get so naked when it's hot. When it's cold, you can put more clothes on, or you can do something. You're cold, you can put your snowshoes on and go for a walk, and you warm up, right?
Yep.
When it's hot, you take all your clothes off, but you don't cool off.
Right. That's exactly right. That's
so
true.
Anyway.
Yep. But just really briefly, we only have a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But you mentioned you had a photography business as well. What kind of photography is it?
I love doing family photography.
Right.
I have to say I don't make a lot of time for it, so I don't know if I could call it a business, but when I can fit it in, I love doing families and kids photographs.
Photographs of kids. Surely that's kind of challenging. And they were squirming around.
Yeah, but that's what part of what's fun. Is trying to capture their personality and getting them to trust you and connect with you, and it's a patience thing. You have to.
So it's not necessarily the classic family portrait where everybody is really stiff and.
Yeah. No, I really try to capture personalities, and I'm a scrapbooker, and so capturing moments and stuff is really what I like to do with my photography. So personalities, connections, family relationships are really what I try to capture in my photographs. So,
well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Heather. It's been such a delight
chatting
chatting with you, and good luck in the upcoming election. Wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me again. I really appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure. So thank you, and
likewise.
Yeah.
So until next time, drive safe, and may all your mischief be of the lawful persuasion.